All right, welcome in everybody. I want to go through a few things with you guys before we get started for all of our students and anyone else that is family guidance counselors, anyone that is joining this session today. Thank you so much for coming. One thing that we want to highlight for you all is that your camera and your microphone are off, so you cannot turn those on. You will just see the panelists and their cameras as they are speaking to you. You can't see them, they can't, or you can see them, they cannot see you. If you do want to ask questions, we do ask that you use the Q&A feature. You'll see it down at the bottom of your screen, or depending where your Zoom is oriented, that will be there in lieu of the chat section, so we can answer questions. Feel free to ask questions at any point during the presentation instead of just waiting till a Q&A session at the end. Feel free, and we will answer those questions at the time that we get the chance to, or at the end during the Q&A session that the panelists have already set aside to answer those questions. Do feel free to sign up for more sessions. There is a wealth of information going on from now until October 1st, and then a second wave of sessions happening at the end of October through November. You can sign up for those at oacac.org. If you have to step out for any reason, or if there's a session that you did sign up for at any point in time, or you're interested for that you missed, or that you're interested in other sessions, you can check out other sessions at oacac.org and then get this recording if you missed part of this one at the same website. And then after having said that, I will hand it off to our panelists, and I will join you guys at the end of the 45-minute session to do a few housekeeping items at the end, and we'll hand it over to the panelists. Mark?
Great, thank you. And good afternoon, everybody. We are excited to have you joining us this afternoon to give you an inside look at applying to selective admission colleges. I'm joined today by two wonderful colleagues at Case Western Reserve University and Oberlin College and Conservatory. And we are thrilled to be welcoming you to this OACAC virtual session, as evident by my colleague who's giving some waves right now. We have a number of what we have designed as common questions that we know you may have about applying to our institutions. So we're gonna try to address those. And then we're going to spend a few minutes towards the end of the presentation walking you through what our application review and decision timeline looks like for this coming year. And then we have allotted time at the end for Q&A. Now we know that you have access to the Q&A box right now, and we want you to feel comfortable sending those questions to us. We are going to take turns presenting this afternoon, and so if you don't hear back right away, it's we may be presenting, or we may be speaking or answering other questions. So our goal is to answer all of your questions prior to the end of today's session. On a number of slides, we will also provide for you our contact information and the best way to reach our institutions. And so you will have that before you leave today as well. Again, welcome, thanks for being here. And it is my pleasure to introduce you to my colleague, Crystal from Case Western Reserve University.
Thanks, Mark. Hi, everyone. My name is Crystal Russell. I'm the Director of Undergraduate Admission at Case Western Reserve University in Cleveland, Ohio. I just finished my first year in this role. Just giving you a brief overview of who we are as an institution. Case Western Reserve is a private research university located in Cleveland. We have an undergraduate population of about 5,300 students. They'll be from all over the world. When a student applies to the university, they are applying to whatever major interests you. As a student, we have the College of Arts and Sciences, the College of Nursing, the College of Engineering, and the College of Management. You indicate what you're interested in majoring in. When you're admitted to the university, you're admitted to every major in every college across campus. So it's a really flexible place for students who have multiple interests, who want to combine two or a double major or a minor, who really want to start day one in their area of interest. It's a great place for those type of students. Some things to know about us is that we are pairing this really flexible interdisciplinary learning with hands-on education. So as a student, you are going to have the opportunity to participate in clinicals or research or studying abroad or experiential learning in just many, many different forms. 84% of our students are going to do research. 99% of our students are going to do 3 or more of those different types of experiential learning opportunities. We are a place that gives you a lot of support. So each incoming student has a team of professional staff members whose goal is to make sure that you are taking advantage of your time at Case Western Reserve, that you are plotting your 4 years, that you are graduating with acceptance to that graduate program you wanted or that job offer that you wanted. But there are a lot of professional staff members who are helping you do that. I know that my time is winding down. I do want to make sure that you're aware that as you apply to the university, we meet 100% of your demonstrated need. Your application for admission is also the application for merit scholarship. So we really can be an affordable option for all of our students. So welcome, we're glad you're here, and I'll turn it over to my counterpart from Oberlin.
Great, thank you so much, Crystal. Hello, everyone. My name is Tom Abeta. I'm the Director of Admissions here at Oberlin. One thing that's distinctive about us as an institution is the fact that we are a full liberal arts college where we have about 2,300 students, but we also have a world-class Conservatory of Music on the same campus. And so we have about 600 students enrolled in that. So it's a pre-professional program. It's for those students that are interested in becoming professional musicians, vocalists, and composers. And then we have about 180 of our students that are enrolled in both. We actually offer a double degree program where you can get a Bachelor of Arts from the College of Arts and Sciences and a Bachelor's of Music from the Conservatory of Music. And so the most common combination is music performance with the natural science, right? So you might have someone that is studying physics or neuroscience, but just happens to play the piccolo or the harp. And so it's a great little place to be. Some of our stats, as you can see, about a quarter of our students would identify as students of color. We get about 13% of our students are international students. And so, yes, they're coming from all 50 states, about 40 different foreign countries. And so with 93% coming out of state, you know, that's a neat little environment here. So what's at the core of what we're doing is obviously the liberal arts. And so we want you to get a well-rounded, broad-based education in small classes, right? So we have no graduate students at all. And so professors are going to teach all your courses, all your labs, and most classes are under 20 students, but we offer about 44 different majors in the college and then another 42 in the music conservatory. And so lots of different things when it comes to exploration. And so many of our students conduct research and you have opportunities to do internships if it's even locally, or doing our kind of 414 schedule of our academic schedule. Where you may take the month of January to do an internship or a shadow program. Again, we are a private institution, so we're very expensive, but we meet 100% of demonstrated need. And so we also offer merit scholarships. And one thing that we're going to be doing a little bit different this year is that every student that is admitted to enroll for this next year is guaranteed a $10,000 merit scholarship. So that's at a minimum. You may receive more, but that's also just to show our commitment to access.
Thanks, Tom. Again, my name is Mark Cortez. As I was thinking about the intro, I'm not sure if I told you who I was or who was speaking to you to welcome you. So my name is Mark Cortez, and I serve as the Director of Outreach and Recruitment at The Ohio State University. We're located in Columbus, Ohio. A unique opportunity for you students is that you're going to hear from 3 very different types of institutions today, especially when we think about our size. So Ohio State has a total incoming freshman class this year of about 8,600 students, which is a little bit larger than maybe the entire enrollment at other colleges who are on the call today. So I think what's unique for you as we start this conversation with you is that you really can have your pick, right? A large place, a small place, somewhere a little bit more intimate, maybe somewhere in between. You have a lot of options. So Ohio State, again, our freshman class ranges around 8,600 students for this year. We have a total enrollment at Ohio State of around 64,000 students. About 54,000 of those students are undergraduate students on our campus. We have 200 majors and offer 500 different specializations. And a total of 12,000 courses that we offer to our students every year. What's nice about offering 200 majors, 500 specializations, and 12,000 courses is that we are still able to offer a very intimate classroom experience where the majority of your classes are going to be in a classroom the size of about 50 students or fewer. We're able to do that because when you come to Ohio State, not every student has to take the same history class and has to take the same algebra class or the same chemistry class. Because of the depth of majors that we offer, students, you have the opportunity to really tailor the types of classes within history or within math or within the arts and sciences that you can choose from. That classroom experience is further engaging through our Apple Partnership Program. We have a program called the Digital Flagship Program where we offer all of our incoming freshman students an Apple iPad. Every year, that Apple iPad is engaging with faculty members. Our faculty members utilize that Apple iPad in your classes. So not only will you use it for classroom work and discussion, you'll also use it outside of the classroom to complete things like assignments. As a part of the Digital Flagship Program, one of our pillars of that is that we do give you access to programs like coding, which are free, and we have a mobile lab which moves across campus so that you have access to that. In addition to that, we have support staff from Apple who are housed on our campus so that you truly have the opportunity to work with professionals alongside the faculty members inside of your classroom and outside of your classroom. We are a public institution and we are ranked #1 in the state of Ohio for public institutions. We are ranked 17th in the nation for public institutions as well. One of the nice things about Ohio State, in addition to all of those, is that we see our students be successful. So we do have a retention rate at about 94%. So 94% of our first year students are saying we're having a great experience and we're looking forward to coming back. Columbus, Ohio is the 14th largest city in the nation. So we are pleased to be able to offer our students an opportunity to engage within the city, which is really designated separately from our campus. We are located about 2 miles from downtown Columbus, but we're a city within a city, if you will. So you have the opportunity to be supported and to engage on our campus, but also just across the sidewalk in the city of Columbus. So next we're going to move into what is a selective school. So you selected this session out of the dozens that are being offered, but we thought it might be a good opportunity to bring everyone to a common place to make sure we're speaking the same language. So Tom, can you discuss with us how you define or what you look at as a selective school?
Sure, and so when we talk about being a selective school, so all of us, it's a matter of how many spaces and how many spots that we're going to be filling up each class here, each incoming class. And then out of that, how many applications are we even considering to fill those spots, right? And so for us, we're bringing in into the College of Arts and Sciences a class of about 675 students a year into the College of Arts and Sciences here. And then for our conservatory music, they bring in about 150 students. And so our conservatory will get about 1,500 people to audition. And so they're ultimately trying to get about 10% of that number to ultimately enroll. And then for us in the college, we get about 8,000 applications to ultimately fill about 675 spots. And so the idea is that if you have a well-qualified applicant pool, but yet, so even for us, I'd say maybe 90% of the students, if I can give a number, that apply to a place like Oberlin are well academically qualified, meaning that they can do the work, they would be successful here. But then it's just a matter of we don't have as much spaces as the number of students that would actually be interested in attending, right? And so I'd love to just open it up to my colleagues for them to kind of share also their numbers in terms of how many applications they receive, and then ultimately, what does that mean in terms of the incoming class that they're looking to fill each year? Crystal?
Yeah, thanks. So for Case Western Reserve University, we received just over 29,000 applications for a class of about 1,400. And I would say the same thing for us that Tom said, is that we had a large number of prospective students, of seniors who are applying, who are well qualified. And for us, it's really looking at your preparation. Are you prepared to do what you want to do on our campus? Can you be successful? As well as, we are looking at building a community. And so there's some other factors that we'll touch on throughout the conversation. But those are some of the things that we look at and where our statistics lie.
And at Ohio State, Tom, we have just over 50,000 students apply for admission in a given year. And of those 50,000 students, in what I'll call a traditional year, we enroll about 52%. We have about a 52% admission rate. Now, that number was a little bit higher this year because of the impact of COVID-19. we wanted to make sure as a university that we could still enroll a diverse class that represented not only the city of Columbus, but the community around us. And we wanted to make sure that the student experience could be sustained for all students, regardless of where they were coming from. So this year, our enrollment number, our enrollment counts were a little bit higher. In a traditional year, which we anticipate moving back to in the next year, we generally enroll a class of around 75 to 7,600 students. And that's really where, of those 50,000 applications, where that 52% acceptance rate comes from.
Crystal, would you mind sharing a little bit about your admit rate this year?
Yeah, I'm glad that you asked me that question. So our acceptance rate, 29,000 applications for a class of 1,400, we accept just under 30%.
And then for us, you know, again, so we're sharing acceptance rates. So for us, with about 8,000 applications, our admit rate is right around 35%, right? So what does that mean? So when we say that we have a target class of whatever that is, now, when we admit students, if you apply to 10 different colleges, you may get into 7, right? Well, you can only go to 1. So what you're saying no to the 6 other schools that admitted you. And so a lot of times our admit rate is higher, right, than the actual number. So when you say a class that we're trying to fill this, you know, some schools may admit, you know, 2 to maybe 3 times the number, maybe 4 or 5 times the number of spots, because depending on how many students actually choose you, right? And so yes, there's a balance. And so sometimes when you see the size of the incoming class and the numbers of applications, it could seem really daunting, but don't let that discourage you, right? And so there's many different factors that come in to deciding how we craft a community, right? And that's kind of what we talk about in the selective admissions world, is that we're building a class or we're crafting a community by selecting individual students that we think would help meet the needs of each institution, right? And so that could be many different factors.
Crystal, let's go next to you with the question of, we're hearing right now from students who are getting concerned about the limited availability for ACT or SAT. So what is your message to students who are wondering, if I haven't had a chance yet to test, or I'm not really sure about that test that I took back in February, should I send it, should I not send it? What are your recommendations for that question?
You're on mute.
So I have had both sides of the desk experience, where the last job I had, I was also a college counselor. So I have been in the admission world, I have been in the high school side. And so if I'm telling and thinking about seniors who are applying to college who don't have testing, who aren't pleased with their testing, our message from Case Western Reserve is to let it go. We are test optional this year. That means for every major, every program, every scholarship on our campus, we don't want you to put your health at risk. If you have a test score that you're proud of, by all means admit it, but we are test optional for this upcoming year.
Tom, do you have any additional words of encouragement or a response for this question?
Well, so for Oberlin, we're also test optional this year. We're going to go on for actually 3 years, for the next 3 years as a pilot program. And if you see across the country, right, there's many schools that have gone test optional. And so, and recently we've even heard word now that there are some schools going test blind, meaning that regardless if you even submit a score, that, right, they are not going to even look at it. And so a lot of it could be in terms of a response to access. Right, we've known that many students and families have been discouraged over the last several months. It's typically after your junior year or during the summer that most families and students would have sat for an ACT or an SAT. And so there's just been a lot of stress over this past summer. And so I think many schools have responded in the right way to say, hey, you know, we're test optional, at least for this next year, many of them going for longer, just to make sure that students are being looked at in the right way in terms of a holistic review. If it's looking at all the elements of their application, making sure that they're going to be able to do that without such a large emphasis on the testing. I do want to say that it does depend, right? So there are still some schools out there, they say that they're test optional, but what does that really mean? It may mean they still may need scores if you want to be considered for merit scholarships and so forth. And so just to be aware of kind of what does test optional mean for certain schools, because it could mean very different things. I know at least for Oberlin, when we say we're test optional, we're truly test optional. So it doesn't mean that you'll still be considered for merit scholarships. You'll be considered for all those things. And so we've always done a holistic review, and we'll continue to do that. And so it's just that for some students that choose not to submit a test score, that's fine. One of the bits of advice, if you're still wavering whether or not to submit test scores, you could look up individual test ranges for each school to kind of help decide whether or not, if you feel it's a better reflection or a good reflection of your ability, then you may choose to do that. And so some schools also, if you initially choose maybe not to submit them, but then you take a test later, they may still have the option of then, if you want to change and you want to submit them, you can do that. The difference of this is you can't unsee scores, right? So it's not something that you would submit a test score and then halfway through say, oh no, I don't want to be considered for testing. It's like, once you submit those to that school, you have to be sure, because then you just can't unsee test scores.
Great. And I would echo that it's really important that you check out each individual school, because everyone's going to have a little bit different of a policy. Tom, in our earlier conversation, did you mention that yours is beyond 1 year?
That's correct. So we're going to do a 3-year pilot program for us for test optional for the next 3 years, so that we can analyze, some of the data. Great.
Now at Ohio State, we are test optional for 1 year. So if you are a senior, that impacts all of you. And Case Western, you also said 1 year program for Case Western, Crystal?
Yes, as of today, we are
Sure.
1 year test optional.
Yes, and students, this may change. And so it's important, especially if you're not a senior, to understand that your requirements may change even over the next few months. And so we encourage you to check out our websites. We encourage you to work with us individually so that you can understand what your application requirements may be, especially if you're not a senior, because I think all of us are responding to what do the seniors who are applying need from us right now. And then as Tom shared, his institution is going beyond the senior class, but others may not be there quite yet. So please continue to work with each institution to really understand what that looks like. Another part of applying to competitive schools is, of course, we are evaluating what kind of activities you have been participating in over the course of your high school career. Related to COVID-19, we know that starting from March, this looks a lot different for you. I think what's important to understand, students, is that we understand that this has looked different for you. We understand that perhaps your track season was canceled, that maybe the spring musical was canceled, and so you didn't have that opportunity to have that leading role. We understand that perhaps your jobs were impacted. We understand that maybe your contributions to your family look a little bit different, or have looked a little bit different over the past few years. We are not competitive institutions to penalize you, students. We are not out to say, well, you did not have an activity that we expected to see. Our reviews are going to encompass a number of factors, and we'll talk about that in a few more minutes. But I just wanted to make sure you understood that from the standpoint of an activities list, or a resume, if you will, on the application, on many of our applications, you'll be asked to tell us what those activities were. We are fully expecting to see that look different. And I just want to share, starting off, that we are not going to penalize you if that looks different. We understand the impacts and the changes that your school went through. What I would encourage you students to think about is there an activity that perhaps you didn't think of as an activity prior to COVID-19? So maybe you have always mowed your lawn for your next door neighbor, or maybe you have always helped grandma by taking her to the grocery store. Maybe that changed for you a little bit. Maybe the reasons for you needing to do that changed a little bit. And so what I would encourage you to think about is, what are those activities that maybe were regular activities for you that you haven't really thought about in a service way? You could still highlight those activities. You could still fill that in on your list of activities and on your resumes that you're sending to us, because we still want to give you consideration for those things that maybe you're not thinking are specialty areas or special activities that you're participating in. Crystal or Tom, do you have anything to add to this component from the standpoint of your review or the standpoint of what you're looking at? Any additional words of advice?
Yeah, I think that it's important that this year in particular, that students are really thoughtful on how they fill out their activity section and how they account for their time. And like you said, Mark, we understand that there's been a lot of changes, and there has been maybe additional responsibilities where you had to work or you had to take care of your younger siblings. But this is the year that you need to account for that, and you need to make sure that admission counselors, admission officers don't have to do the guesswork and fill in the blank.
I do want to add that if you're using the common application, or also I know the coalition application, they did add an additional question this year for students to fill out in regard to how you were impacted by COVID. If you had limited access, if it hurt, in terms of how your schooling went remotely. And so I would definitely use that opportunity to kind of answer that, to help provide context for those admissions offices that will be evaluating your application. And so I think that it still then allows, if there is the main essay as part of your application, it doesn't necessarily have to be kind of COVID related, all COVID, right? And so I think that we still want to find out about things that you're passionate about, but fortunately, there's already a question kind of built into at least some of the 2 larger applications out there. And then there may be some institutions that have their own individual application too, where you can talk specifically about some of the impact that this past year has had. And so we'll definitely have that in context. And so we're grateful that both the common application and the coalition application have added those questions in there to just give us more information as admissions counselors when we evaluate each application.
Great. Tom, does Oberlin accept both the common application and the coalition application?
So we use the common application as well as the coalition application. So we partner with both, and we don't have a separate application. Those are the only 2 applications that we use. And then the Conservatory is more audition based, but they do use the common application to apply to the Conservatory too.
Great. And Crystal, same question for Case Western.
Yes, we use both the common application and the coalition.
Great. And I'll throw in that at Ohio State, we are exclusively a common application school. So students, if you've had a sibling or a cousin apply recently, this is our first year that we've moved to just the common application. So just want to make sure I include that as well. So Crystal, we have a number of students who are also asking, especially for competitive admission school, I still want to show an interest. So how can I continue to show an interest and continue to engage with the school if it's limited right now because I get to campus?
Yeah, so I think first and foremost, it's important to know, again, recognizing that travel is limited, colleges have different policies regarding visitors. For all colleges and universities, we have switched to this virtual space. We have enhanced our virtual tours. We have added information sessions, academic sessions. We have created panels, a way for students to really get an idea of the campus community and really give you a chance to explore a university that's really been unprecedented in this time. So as you can show an interest, certainly signing up for the online session. If a college offers interviews, and I know that we're one of them, sitting for a conversation with an admission counselor or a member of the admission staff, and just making sure that your questions are answered, that campus has an idea of who you are, why you're interested in that university or college. That's a great opportunity to show your interest. Most colleges are going to have some sort of geographic territory allotment for admission counselors to cover where you're coming from. And so reaching out to your admission counselor if you have any questions, if there's something on your mind that you can't find online, or maybe your counselor doesn't know the answer to, just reaching out and talking directly to that university or college is a great way to show your interest. And I don't know if I missed anything, Mark or Tom.
I would like to add, again, all 3 of our institutions offer early decision, as a way to apply. I do want to say, I wouldn't necessarily say that you need to do that as a strategic way to just get in. But if you know that your school that you're applying to, it's your #1 choice and you're definitely committed toward that, that's kind of the ultimate expression of interest is to apply early decision, because early decision is obviously a binding agreement. And so basically you're saying, if you admit me, I will definitely, enroll. And so that is another way, but again, you want to make sure that you explore all the options and use the net price calculators, and you're making sure that what you're committing to is something that your family's able to do.
That's great. Students on this slide, we just listed how you can work with us right now. So both Case Western and Ohio State are only virtual right now. Our colleagues at Oberlin are seeing students on campus, but also offering virtual programs. So we have these websites listed here for you. Again, we want you to engage with us in the way that makes the most sense for you. And so if that is visiting colleges in person or working with them virtually, what I would encourage, I always encourage students to reach out to the college before you make any travel plans, especially if there's a flight involved. Make sure that they are seeing folks on campus, make sure there's availability. I know a number of colleges and colleagues across the country are limiting the number of students. So maybe instead of offering 30 people for a tour, they're only seeing 15 to help limit the number of people on campus. And so before you make any of those travel arrangements, in-state or out-of-state, we want you to check with those institutions. We've gone ahead and provided our links for you because we want you to engage with our institutions as well. But just as a general word of advice, take some time to do some homework in advance of those visits before you do that. So we also want to dive in for the next about 15 minutes here, students, to give you a little insight into our admissions review process. So at Ohio State, for example, our admissions review works in a few different ways. When a student applies, we look for a complete application. Tom mentioned early decision earlier. At Ohio State, we have an early action deadline of November the 15th for applicants for the 2021 autumn semester. In our review, once we have that complete application, it is assigned to 2 individual application readers. So if Tom were also at Ohio State and Crystal's the student applying, Crystal submits her application, she applies by November the 15th, it is independently assigned to both Mark and Tom to evaluate her application. So at Ohio State, our process goes to 2 different individual readers first. If Mark says, Crystal's a really strong applicant, I want to admit her, and Tom says, no, Crystal's a strong applicant, but there's a few areas that I have some questions about, maybe on the fence a little bit, that Crystal, we have to watch her. Then maybe Tom says, again, this is Ohio State's example, that Crystal's maybe deferred. That means there's 2 different decisions. And that means that that application would then go to a 3rd reader. And when that 3rd reader is assigned that application, they don't know that Mark said admit and that Tom said deferred. So that 3rd independent reader is going to take a look at Crystal's application and independently make a decision based off of their evaluation of Crystal's application. If that 3rd reader says, yes, I think it's also an admit, then that's the decision that we move forward with a recommendation on. If they say, you know, I also have a few questions and concerns about Crystal's application, I'm going to defer, and that's the decision that moves forward. Our goal is that that 3rd person is moving that application forward. But for whatever reason, if maybe Mark was really off his game and Tom was really off his game and that 3rd person says, you know, Crystal really should be denied, then we actually invite a 4th reader to review that application. I share that context with you, students, because in our competitive admissions review process at Ohio State, we're evaluating 9 different factors of admission through our holistic review. How our application readers read and how your application moves through the evaluation process at Ohio State is going to be different than your friend who applied maybe 3 days before you, or even your neighbor who applied maybe 2 weeks after you. At Ohio State, because we have the applications reviewed by independent readers, and each reader can have up to a week to evaluate that application, even if you're complete by November the 15th, you may not receive a decision when we release our first round of early action decisions in December. You may receive your decision in January. Now, just because you don't hear back from Ohio State in December doesn't mean you're not going to be a good candidate for admission or that you're not going to be admitted. It means that your specific application is moving through our review process in a slightly different way than your classmate, your neighbor, your friend, or even your cousin from a different town and a different high school. At Ohio State, we don't have limits to the number of students who we admit from each school. We evaluate, again, based off of 9 different factors. I'm stressing these 9 different factors because, as we shared earlier, Ohio State is test optional. So if that is one factor that we're not considering, students, there are still 8 other factors that we're giving you consideration for. If you're not submitting a test score as a part of our test optional plan, and you were impacted by activities, a loss of activities, there are still other factors that you're going to be considered for. How all of that works is that holistic review. That's what all of our application reviewers are evaluating you on. It's important for you also to understand, students, that the application review at Ohio State and the timeline at Ohio State may look different from other institutions. So quite often we hear from students in our office who say, but Mark, I heard from these other Big Ten institutions, or I heard from these other institutions in Ohio or outside of Ohio. Why haven't I heard from Ohio State? And again, that comes back to every institution is going to evaluate and take different amounts of time evaluating applications to our university. Tom, do you want to give an insight into the process at Oberlin?
Sure. I'll get, so again, it's 2 separate processes. First of all, for the Conservatory, it's very different. It is an audition-based, talent-based thing. And so it's basically a pre-screening, and you have a 20-minute audition, and you are evaluated based upon your talent, your musicality. So a very different process, right? And so a student could even be kind of so-so academically, but be a really great vocalist or an instrumentalist, and because it is a pre-professional track for the Conservatory of Music. Now I say that, but also some of our best students in our college are also in the Conservatory. So some of our top students. And so again, like the example I used before, you might have someone that's really into physics or neuroscience or something, but also plays an instrument. And so they can do that. For the college, we also employ holistic review. We have at least 2 different people reading the same application. And so we're looking at the rigor of your high school, what was offered to you, I would say, and how you took advantage of that curriculum. We're looking at all your writing samples, your teacher recommendations. And so we're going to kind of make that assessment. And then we also do look at express interest. We look at contact with the college and those types of things. Not that it's the most important, but there's many different factors. Any school that you're applying to, there may be a lot of different things that could influence it. Like say that Ohio State, if you're a Division I recruit for the football team, that can make a big influence of whether or not you might get in based upon your talent, right? That's the same thing for our Conservatory. If you're a top harpist, and then, there's very few spots, but if you're the best, then you can get in. The same way, we're Division III athletics at Oberlin, so we do take into account like your extracurricular activities, but we still need to fill the team. So if the soccer team needs a new goalie and you happen to be a goalie and you're being looked at by the coaches, that's going to be part of the discussion in committee. There may be new academic programs that a college may have. And so as a result, they're saying, hey, we just started this new cultural anthropology major. And so for those students interested in anthropology, maybe we want to be more generous that year. And so there could be many different factors. It could be the fact that, geographic location. It could be, for us, all of us here in Ohio, right? We actually like it when we see applications from Ohio because we only get 7% of the kids that come to Oberlin come from Ohio. So when you're from Ohio, we're thinking, oh, great, we need more kids from Ohio to come to Oberlin. So there's a lot of different factors in play. And so I think those are the types of things that some of the things you have some influence over, but others, it's just a matter you can't change. You can't change your transcript after, 3.5 years. It is what it is. But what you can do is, based upon your interest, you may do some research about a particular faculty member or an academic department. You may choose to write in your application, I'm really interested in your school because of this program, and I see myself doing these things. That could make an influence depending on the institution. But again, there's many different factors. It is holistic, and we're taking all these things. It's not just about the numbers, right? So we may make choices far outside the box because we actually have a need, and that's an institutional priority that for whatever reason, that's something that we want to emphasize. And so we look at all those things, diversity, socioeconomics, we look at your interests, your connections to the institution, how you would be a contributor to our community, right? And so it could be from artistic to athletic, and we're looking at all those things, and those factors could make a difference.
Great. Crystal, one of the items that Tom mentioned and that we've mentioned briefly was the essay. So as you think about competitive institutions and your institution, Case Western, what advice do you have about the importance of the essay students provide?
Yeah, the essay, when you're applying to a university, your grades are your grades, your scores or your test optional status or what you've been involved in, all of that has really been a summation of your experience. Sometimes the only and the first time that you get to talk directly to the university is in that essay. And so as we're looking at the selective university, we're looking, is it well written? Are you showcasing your ability to write on the college level? Are you interesting? Again, we are not just putting people in classrooms, we are putting people in a community that have stories to tell and that are going to be good roommates, and they're going to be good teammates, and they're going to be good bandmates or what have you. They're going to be contributing, again, like Tom said, to a campus. And that essay is a way to showcase some of that interesting things, some of those interesting things about you. So take some time. It's unlike any other piece of writing you've done. And it is just a glimpse into who you are. And my favorite piece of advice for students who are starting their college essay is, if it is not interesting for you to write, it will be interesting for us to read. So really think about what you want to share and take some time and send it in a thoughtful way.
Great, thank you. Students, we have on the screen for you right now just an overview of our early action or early decision deadlines, our regular decision deadlines, and then deadlines associated with financial aid at each of our institutions. We know that while the main topic of this was applying to selective admission colleges, and while we don't represent all, we again wanted to highlight our information for you so that you could see, even in Ohio, and even between 3 different institutions, there are some differences, but there's also some commonalities on here. So you're gonna see that November 15th, January, some of those common dates, January 15th versus February 1st. Again, as you're thinking about applying to your institutions, both in-state and out-of-state, it will be important for you to reach out and understand what these dates and deadlines are. As I shared, we have just over 50,000 students apply to us, and every single year we receive questions from students the day after the deadline that said, oh, I ran into trouble, can you still accept my application? Or, oh, it's a week late, but can I still submit my application as early action? And unfortunately, our answer has to be no, right? Because for Ohio State, we are starting to evaluate applications. We are looking at those completion deadlines. And so if you do miss our early action deadline, we would consider you still for a regular decision application deadline. Tom, you mentioned previously early decision, and it's a good way to indicate interest and a strong way to lead. Yes, if I'm admitted, I'm gonna go there. I'm not sure if you covered though, is Oberlin you have early decision here. Any additional components that you want to share about Oberlin, and is Oberlin specifically committed to those deadlines? Is there flexibility for students in this coming year? Any insight about those deadlines?
So again, those are our deadlines for a reason. Obviously we want to see people submit stuff, but I would imagine that this next coming year, people will be flexible too. So I know that, with the amount of people that end up enrolling at different schools, I think that we'll be looking toward even admitting more students this next coming year.
Great. Crystal, anything to add with Case Westerns? You have EA1 and EA2. Do you want to maybe just highlight what between those?
Well, we have ED1 and ED2, and we also have EA. We have all the deadlines. So ED for us, for Case Western, we bring about 20% of the incoming class through early decision. So if we're your first choice, by all means, if you are a student who maybe wants to wait till after a first semester, ED2 is a great option. It is that binding agreement, but early action, for example, you're going to have an answer from Case Western Reserve by Christmas. And that is one of the benefits of applying in one of our early options.
Great, thank you. That time went a lot faster than I anticipated. And thank you to our colleagues at StriveScan for keeping us on track. Students, we do, in closing, appreciate you selecting our session. We want you to reach out to us with any questions that maybe perhaps we didn't cover today. So feel free to give us a quick Google search, reach out to us, and we are happy to engage with you and any additional follow-up questions that you might have from today.
Thank you, Mark, Tom, and Crystal. It was amazing information. Thank you so much. Hopefully the students and counselors found it useful and can employ that. When a couple of housekeeping items, I'll let you guys go for the afternoon. When you close this window, and when I end the broadcast, there will be a link for a very quick 4-question survey that StriveCan and OACAC ask that you fill out for us. We appreciate any feedback that you can provide. Also, this was just one of many sessions. So as I mentioned at the beginning, be sure to sign up for additional sessions at oacac.org. In about a week, you'll be able to find this session's recording as well as all the other sessions recordings in case you missed one that you did want to go to or missed the registration for it or whatever the case may be. Again, at oacac.org. Thank you so much, and we'll hope to see you guys very, very soon.
Thank you.